Hi, this is Rev Ed with today's Back Porch Devotional from Psalm 90. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You return man to dust and say, Return, O children of man, for 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday when it is gone, or as a watch in the night. You sweep them away as with a flood. They are like a dream, like grass that is renewed in the morning. In the morning it flourishes and is renewed. In the evening it fades and withers. For we are brought to an end by your anger. By your wrath we are dismayed. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. For all our days pass away under your wrath. We bring our years to an end like a sigh. The years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength, 80. Yet their span is but toil and trouble. They are soon gone, and we fly away. Who considers the power of your anger and your wrath according to the fear of you? So teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom. Return, O Lord, how long? Have pity on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, that we may rejoice and be glad all our days. Make us glad for as many days as you have afflicted us, and for as many years as we have seen evil. Let your work be shown to your servants, and your glorious power to their children. Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands upon us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. This psalm is attributed to Moses, and you can hear the voice of a man who has experienced life wandering in the wilderness with God. And he begins with a glorious statement of faith. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. You know, the Israelites were essentially homeless for 40 years, and yet Moses knew that they were at home with the Lord. And that's a very comforting thing for each of us who belong to God to remember. No matter what the circumstances of our lives, if we belong to God, we are at home with Him, and that is the safest place to be. God is the eternal one. You know, before the mountains were brought forth or the world was ever formed, from everlasting to everlasting, God is God. He says that man returns to the dust, and that is part of the curse that was placed on man after the fall in the Garden of Eden. You were made from dust, and to dust you shall return. And it is true for all of us. Eventually we will return to the dust. Moses says our days are like grass which is renewed in the morning, and in the evening it withers and fades away. It's like a dream that just evaporates when we wake up. He talks about how our lives are spent under the wrath of God, and our secret sins are brought before His presence. We should never minimize the wrath of God, and we need to understand what is meant by that phrase. God is pure and holy, and He cannot abide anything that is not. And we have to acknowledge that we are sinners, and it is only by the grace of God to us in Jesus Christ that we can stand in the presence of God. It is for our sake and for our sinfulness that Jesus was crucified. And we need to remember that the wrath of God was poured out on Jesus so that we didn't have to experience it. There's that old phrase, the fear of the Lord. And it doesn't mean that we're to hide under the bed because we think God's going to zap us for doing something wrong. It does mean to show proper respect for who God is, to show awe at His majesty and His power, and just marvel at who He is. And we need to recognize that our days are short. And so Moses says, teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom. None of us knows how much time we will have. It might be today, it might be tomorrow, it might be 10 years from now. But at some point, each of us will wither and fade like the grass. And we need to be prepared for that day, and we need to live the days that are allotted to us in wisdom, in understanding that God is God, and that we are to live in the light of His holiness and walk according to His ways. Moses said, satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love. And you remember that great verse from that Jeremiah wrote in Lamentations. His mercies are new every morning. It's morning now as I record this, and every day is a fresh start with the Lord, who is our dwelling place. And it is a wonderful prayer every single day to say, Lord, give us a heart of wisdom. It is a wonderful thing to seek out God's face as we begin our day and to remember his goodness every single morning. And then there is this petition: let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands. Establish the work of our hands. Let the work that we do not be wasted. And we have this great promise, and it comes from the words of Paul in the 15th chapter of 1 Corinthians, that beautiful passage that talks about the reality and the meaning of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And at the conclusion of that chapter, Paul says this: therefore, my beloved brothers and sisters, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain. Whatever we do for the Lord endures forever. And so we need to get wisdom. We need to consider how short our days are and make sure we are investing in the things that are eternal and not the things that are passing by. God has given us this time, and we don't know how much it is, but we know we have today. His mercies are new this morning, and we can seek his wisdom and his face, and we can ask that our labor would be pleasing to him, and that the work that we do for the Lord will endure. God's blessings be upon you this day.